So Michelle, thank you so much for speaking with me today. We'd like to start with a bit of introduction. So if you could go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so I am born and raised in San Francisco, California. I am a recent graduate of San Francisco State University with my bachelor's in information systems. And in the jobs world, I also recently got a job in tax company as a IT help desk associate. It was just yesterday too, so that was very surprising. And
Congratulations.
then outside of school and work, I do enjoy baking. Sometimes that's like a stress reliever. In the health aspect, I would say I haven't always prioritized it very well. It's been a lot of focusing on school, and during the school I also worked a little bit, so a lot of my time was spent on both. Although I could have made the time, it wasn't a priority for me.
Graduating during a pandemic. How was the graduation during the pandemic for you?
So I did just graduate, say a couple days ago. I finished my last assignment 2 days ago, I think. And so they host the graduation ceremony once a year, but they do have graduations 4 times a year. So the ceremony isn't until next year.
My wife and I, we used to live in Pacifica.
Yes, I am in the outer mission of San Francisco.
You mentioned that you enjoy cooking. Any particular type of food you like to cook?
When I do cook on my own, since I live at home and my parents do most of the cooking, I like to explore more outside of our cultural foods. I'm Asian American, so we cook a lot of Chinese food. So when I do cook myself, I do really like pasta, although that's a lot of carb, and that's what makes me gain a lot of weight too. Since when my parents do cook, especially my mother, she cooks more blandly, a lot, just a little bit of salt. Although that's good for myself since I do have a heart problem, so that's good for it.
Sure. And this heart problem you've known about for a long time?
Yes, I had it since I was born.
So thank you so much for sharing background. You started to talk a bit about your health, and before you engaged with Healthful Data, you mentioned you didn't prioritize it. Could you talk a bit about anything that you have experienced from a health perspective? You mentioned your heart condition, of course, but other things that you dealt with, so to speak, but didn't necessarily pay that much attention to.
Yes, so growing up, having this heart condition, there was a lot of health problems that came with it, such as every couple of years, 5, 6 years. The most recent one was 2 years. There would be a procedure that would need to be done to update that area where problematic. And growing up in school, we had physical education as middle and high school. Those are classes that you needed to take. So during that time, I did have doctor's notes where I'm not able to run certain amount of miles because part of PE and passing it was to do the physical examination test, which consisted of that run, push-ups, sit-ups, a couple other things. If I would run a lot, I would breathe heavily. So somewhat to do with that, also not regular exercise. That does part of it too. So with that, going to the doctors and letting them know, they mentioned to me that it could be asthma. So asthma was one of the things that I did have for maybe 1-2 years, but then it kind of went away since I was going to school, walking home. There was still a little bit more physical exercise, although I didn't just exercise. There was still that cardio that came up with it. Aside from that, about a year or two ago, because I told them I wake up from my sleep, at times I get headaches. I am still so tired that I don't want to wake up. Even after sleeping for 8, sometimes 10 hours, I'm still so tired. I mentioned that to them, and they're like, oh, maybe you might have sleep apnea. And I was, okay. They had this machine that they wanted me to test out to kind of see if that was actually the case, but I haven't had a chance to go to test it out just yet. And I would say those are a couple of my health problems growing up till now that I've dealt with.
So it sounds like normal childhood, so to speak, right? Going to school, getting the exercise through going to school. The heart condition certainly is very unique and certainly something that you've had to deal with. Procedures once every few years, etc. Has to be a lot to handle as a young person for sure. And then of course you're told things that you may have asthma. And when you first heard you had asthma, what were your thoughts running through your head, and how did you manage through that?
When I was first told I had asthma, I thought when I do those tasks like running, exercising, I would breathe heavily and be tired, but I never thought it would be asthma. So when I heard that might be a possibility, and I was given an inhaler to help during those times when I would breathe heavily, I thought maybe I just need to exercise a little bit more so my body is used to that cardio and I'm not just doing it in kind of like spurts where I'm exercising a lot and then I don't do any exercise and I exercise a lot. That was kind of like how it was during school because a lot of my time was spent focused on schoolwork. So the extra time that I had, I didn't spend that time to exercise. So maybe I thought to myself, I just needed to spend a little bit more of my time to exercise, even though it might just be stretching, a little bit of jogging, something to help with that. So my body is used to it when I do a little bit more than my normal cardio exercise.
Sure, sure. So you had asthma for a couple of years, you mentioned. Was there anything that helped to resolve it sooner than you thought, or helped to alleviate some of your symptoms besides the inhaler?
I think it was just the inhaler that kind of helped it, and then me knowing that asthma was the case and during that time maybe exercising a little bit more.
And so more recently, a couple of years ago, you were told that you might have sleep apnea. What did the doctor tell you about it?
During that regular doctor visit that I had, it was actually to check my heart, a yearly checkup for that. And I mentioned to the doctor that the symptoms that I have when after I sleep and possibility was sleep apnea. And it was mentioned to me that I should try this machine that could tell me if it actually is to track my sleep patterns, and if it is, we should cure it, find ways to cure it, because if it's cured, it'll also be beneficial for my heart. Although I still haven't gone to do that. I should, but that's what was told to me.
Sure, sure. And yeah, I mean, I'll speak for myself, right? I sent you the video of my own journey with severe sleep apnea.
Mhm.
When I was your age, a long time ago now, but when I was your age, I was sort of invincible, right? And you kind of just caffeine is your friend and it gets you through
Oh.
the day. And you don't realize when you wake up with somatic responses, headaches and other things, and you're tired and you might want to take a nap middle of the day. Maybe you sleep 10 hours in a day on the weekend. Maybe you're grumpy. Maybe your mood swings a bit. All of these things are very much directly tied to the sleep apnea. And hopefully you had a chance to view the video that I sent to you, because it is a big part of sort of my own journey, why I started the nonprofit, healthfulheroes.com, and why I'm starting this startup. Because upon reflection, I wasn't diagnosed with sleep apnea until I was 28 years old, so a bit later than your diagnosis or suspicion of sleep apnea. Once I was diagnosed, then I was, typical as a young person, non-compliant with the CPAP machine, which is what they would give you. It's very uncomfortable to sleep with. It's a difficult thing. And kind of just sort of bumbling around the healthcare system trying to figure out solutions. And I realized now that I fixed myself at the age of 39, right? I'm 40 now, but I fixed myself last year. Wow, I was living a pretty terrible life. I estimate that my life was running at about 30% with the severe sleep apnea. And now that I'm fixed, I have a lot more energy. My moods are a lot better, much more able to stay awake and power through things. I don't fall asleep in movies. I don't need to like hit myself to take a long drive, that kind of thing. And overall quality of life is so much more improved. So hence the nonprofit, hence the startup, because I feel that if I had only known way back when that I was living this 30% life, I might have had the urgency to prioritize doing something about it a bit sooner. And so that's my hope for everyone with chronic health condition that could be addressed, is that we start to see that these things that we're experiencing, for you, the headache and being able to sleep for 8, 10 hours without feeling rested, that's not normal. I used to watch my wife wake up, and she'd wake up at 7 in the morning and get three hours of work done before I even got out of bed, right? And I thought, yeah, she just has more energy than me. Well, in reality, I was chronically not sleeping. And when you have sleep apnea, that's actually the case. You're waking up, in my case, 66 times an hour, right? Was sort of the severity. You can imagine you're not actually sleeping when, even though you're lying down. So yeah, so that's kind of the genesis of the startup and this conversation. So tell me about, your energy levels. You mentioned being able to sleep for 8 hours and more and not feeling rested, but talk to me a bit more about how you feel day to day and that kind of thing.
I can give an example of recently without school and work anymore. Just this past 1, 2 days of this week, or 3, I would go to bed a decent time, 9, 10, and then since I don't have school and work, I would wake up 9 to 10. That's like what? 12 hours? Yeah, somewhere around there at times. 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. So waking up, I would sometimes, this past day, I got a headache. And I was like, maybe I just didn't sleep too well. I had too many dreams. Because I've been told that when you sleep and you have a lot of dreams, you aren't actually sleeping. Your brain is still moving. So after waking up, I would feel slightly rested but still tired. Not to the point where if I lay in bed again and I would fall asleep. So with that, once I am awoken and go through my day-to-day activities this past couple of days, I would do my things that I needed to do. And then throughout that process, while looking at a screen, my laptop, I would start to feel my headache a little bit more. The pain would be a little bit more than I have just woken up. And when I do with that, I also start to feel a little bit tired after maybe 30 minutes to an hour once I start doing whatever I am doing. And I think to myself, should I go back to sleep? But if I go back to sleep, I won't be able to sleep. I realized that if I go to sleep and I can't go to sleep, if I'm in bed and I can't fall asleep, I personally feel like I would rather use that time to do something else. So, and not
Sure.
just kind of waste my time in bed. But throughout the day, I remember I used to take sometimes 3 to 4 hour naps, and I'd be like, the day is over, and I'm still so tired for some reason. So that's kind of how it's like.
And very similar to my own experiences as well. And what you'll find fascinating, if you get your apnea addressed, if presuming you have it, we don't know, but presuming you have it, sounds like you do, by the way, but presuming you have it, you'll find you need a lot less sleep. My wife gets mad at me now because I'll wake us up at like 6, 7 in the morning to go be active. Because now, instead of the 10 hours of non-sleep,
Hmm.
I'm getting the 7 hours of good sleep, which, as you can imagine, is quite a big difference, right? So yeah, so I'm very glad that you are recognizing that situation for yourself. So let's turn our conversation a bit. I'd love to talk about, how you found our benchmarking service and what you thought about it as you thought about doing it.
I found your benchmarking service through social media. So going through the process of filling in my information, it allowed me to reflect on maybe my day-to-day life and moments when I would feel exhausted and the reason for why. And since your benchmark was focused more so on sleep apnea, that caught my eye when looking at it because that was something that the doctor mentioned to me that I might have. So I wanted to see, going through your process, maybe I can see like a second ear or a second word from someone else if that's actually the case. So once I filled it all out and then I got the report, I realized that, oh, maybe I might actually have it, and possibly another motivator to actually try to go and get it checked.
Oh, that's great. That's exactly the goal. And so when you found the service through social media, did you have any hesitancy about using the service at all?
The only hesitancy I had was when I opened the forum and I saw there was a good amount of questions. I was like, oh, maybe let me think about it. Let me think about it before I fill it out. That was the only thing.
Sure, sure. And now you can see as a result of your report why all those questions are there. We really want to take a systematic and holistic assessment of your health. After participating and receiving the report, what are your thoughts about your participation? How do you feel?
I feel that after receiving the report and seeing the broad range of other people that might have it, how I compare to them, it makes me feel that it's something that is impacting me. And it gave me ways that I can go about to help it, aside from going to the doctor. And for me, it's very beneficial in a way that since I'll be starting my actual job in 2 weeks, not just any college job that I have, an actual job where I'll be spending 9 hours a day there, 8, 9 hours at the office working. I want to make sure that I do have the energy and I'm not tired all the time and I'm able to consume the information to be able to help others in the company, as that's my job as a help desk associate.
Yeah, absolutely, right. I mean, the ability to have the energy to commit to work, to process information, you raised that yourself. I will speak from my own experience with severe sleep apnea. I used to tell people that I was running a Pentium 2, that for whatever reason, my thought process was just low. I'd
Mm-hmm.
eventually get there, but it would take a while. When people would talk to me, sometimes they would talk to me and I'd lose track of the conversation, right? Or I'd lose track of what I wanted to say if I didn't say it quickly enough.
Oh,
And I would forget words randomly, common words, words that no one should forget. But when your brain is poorly oxygenated, you have that issue where your brain is not functioning at its best as well. So there are lots of things that come about because we don't sleep if we have sleep apnea. And does any of that sound like your experience?
a good amount of what you said sounds like my experience talking to someone, and if I'm not able to say what I need to say before they finish what they're saying, I forget what I'm saying. And when I hear someone talking for 5, 10 minutes, I lose track of what they're saying. I'm like, and they ask me, what do you think? After what they said, and I think to myself, what did they just say? I do experience that.
I remember when I was in school listening to a professor and never being able to learn very well when a professor is talking, just never. I'd only be able to learn on my own because when the professor's talking, at some point the brain just shuts down.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so a long way of approaching the situation, which is to say the way we assess your health, right? We assess that your energy levels are very poor and that your sleep is very poor. And this is not just us saying that, it's relative to everyone else who used the platform. How does that make you feel as you hear those words that there's something that is quote unquote not normal?
It makes me feel that there's something that I need to put more focus on, aside from what I have been focusing on, such as my health. Because for myself, with what others have told me at the age that I am at, most people are eating whatever they like to eat, partying all night, drinking, doing whatever. And for myself, I've never really done that because a lot of my time has been focused on what I believe is to be important, being school and work. So knowing that others are going through it and seeing that in comparison to others, it makes me think it is something really important. And I realize that with the exhaustion that I'm feeling, and something that you also mentioned, that you're living life 30%, it makes me rethink, am I actually living life like that too? Maybe I am, because I'm also so tired all the time that I'm just in some way getting by the day, not really enjoying the day. But like when I hear other people, oh, I can't wait until this day is over and I could go home and just sleep. There's times when I feel that too, but like those are hours of your day that has gone by and you're not going to get back. But why not just enjoy it? Like find ways to enjoy those couple of hours. So it makes me really think that maybe I need to focus a little bit more now on that area.
And I will say this, as someone who didn't get diagnosed until 28 and then literally spent the next decade after knowing I had it, not paying attention to it, you're at a very good spot right now. which is to say you are aware, right?
Mhm.
Hopefully, the report gave you a bit of a deeper understanding of how severe your situation might be.
Mhm.
Hopefully, even this conversation does as well, which I'm guessing it is helping.
Yeah.
And, the reason why I posted my journey onto healthfulheroes.com is literally to help folks like me
Mhm.
who were powering through, caffeinating, living that 30% life, and hopefully finding a way to fix things before they become 39 years old. And so I would say you're in a great spot for that to happen. Now let's talk about a few other things, right, that happens when you have poor sleep. And this is from my own firsthand experience. If you have poor sleep, you will have less energy, which everyone kind of recognizes. You have less energy, so you're less likely to exercise. The thought of walking around the block when I was not well, even just the thought sounded too much for me to do. Now that I am better with my sleep, we were training to go literally before the pandemic or during the pandemic, we were training to go hike Machu Picchu.
Wow.
That's how different of an orientation I have toward exercise.
Mm.
You mentioned a heart condition. Before I had fixed my sleep apnea, when I would be asleep, my heart would go so over 100 beats per minute. And the physiologic reason for that is there's less oxygen in the blood, and therefore the heart is pumping faster to get oxygen to the brain, literally. And so, particularly individuals with heart conditions, sleep apnea can be a pretty significant thing. If your heart already with a condition is then forced to work harder during what would otherwise be a restful time, right? Then that could be a pretty significant negative outcome for sure. I estimate that I probably would have died at 55, with the severity of my condition. But now I'll probably live a normal lifespan and a better life too, right? Going from 30% to 100%. That's quite significant.
Mm.
I can tell you sitting in front of you that the nonprofit and this startup wouldn't have been possible if I had not fixed the apnea first. And so these are all things that I'm hoping that through these reports that we give to individuals, that they get a sense as to where they are and take the actions that I think would be most beneficial. In the case of your report specifically, right? Poor sleep quality, poor energy levels, which will lead to the other things, lower levels of exercise, etc. But you fix the sleep, and I can guarantee you that many other things will come positively forward in your life and in what you have to experience moving forward. So congratulations on taking this step with Healthful Data. I'm appreciative that you participated, but I'm going to venture to guess that this 15 minutes you invested with Healthful Data will change your life.
I believe so. I will try to get that machine to test to see if I actually have it, because I want to know now, especially that data point that you mentioned to me of 30%. That really hits me, because I want to be living a fruitful life, and just living on 30%, that isn't a lot.
It's worth a lot to fix it. And actually that actually brings me to the report itself, right? Now that we've had this conversation, I made it a bit more pointed that bottom 30% of sleep means
Mhm.
bottom 30% of energy, which was that as clear as it could have been in the report, or should I make that more clear next time?
That was pretty clear for me. Can I ask you a question?
Sure, of course.
People like doctors, and I did a little bit of research about sleep apnea too. They mentioned that your weight is a part of it, your BMI. Would you say
Sure.
that is a big part of sleep apnea, or is that more so like middle to little part of it?
So it's a great question. I would actually say that they are connected for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was your age, I was 117 pounds, and as a male at 117 pounds, I was extraordinarily skinny. I
Mm.
like to joke with my wife that I was skinnier than my wife is when I met her, and I was.
Yeah.
So in my particular case, there was a physiological defect, right?
Mm.
In the structure of my jaw. I have a pretty of a weak chin,
Mm.
and that means the airway in the back of the throat is a bit narrower, even without any excess weight.
Interesting.
So, long way of saying that you don't have to be overweight to get sleep apnea. It's a fallacy for sure.
Mm. Okay.
But the other thing is also true. If you are in fact not sleeping well and therefore no energy to exercise, like me, then you will gain weight.
That's true. Yeah.
And gaining weight does not help because it reduces the amount of airway in the back of the throat. So being overweight is not a necessary cause of sleep apnea, but it is an exacerbating cause. And interestingly, it might actually be the root cause of
I
weight gain.
I think that might be the case for me, because for me, my BMI is on the just hitting the overweight, maybe a little bit over that overweight side. So that's what I've thought for sleep apnea. Maybe it's just I need more exercise. Would you think like if more exercise would it go away automatically or like slowly go away, or would it be something that you still need to treat for it to kind of fully go away?
Would weight loss solve apnea? Is the
Yes,
question.
that's my question.
So let me ask you a direct question. Have you always been a bit overweight or not?
I would say yes.
Okay. Losing weight will help.
Hmm.
Will it cure? That you would need a doctor, right? I'm not a doctor. But the first step, of course, is to get the assessment and to recognize or to assess your severity itself, right? Right. If you are very severe like I was, then weight gain or weight loss alone will definitely not help, right? So there's a spectrum of your ability to impact the problem without CPAP machine, without other things that you can do. You can watch my video, for example, to find out some of the things that I did, right? So those are so does that help? Does that help?
That does help. Yes.
Was there anything surprising about what you learned in the report?
In the report, nothing surprising to me, but it was helpful for me that I'm able to utilize it when I decide to go to the doctor to possibly get the machine.
And is there anything that, as a result of the report, that you believe that you will do that you wouldn't have done without the report?
Without the report, I would have believed that my sleep apnea was something that I didn't need to put more focus on. But having that report and seeing those data points in there, it made me realize that it is something that I should prioritize more than I would have if I did not see it.
Have you ever talked to anyone about potentially having sleep apnea aside from your doctor?
Aside from my doctor, people in my immediate family, I did mention to them that could be a possibility.
And did any of them have sleep apnea and have any useful advice to share?
In my family, I don't think anyone has have sleep apnea, or if they had, they haven't mentioned it, so I don't know about it.
Couple of easy tests. One easy test is obviously snoring, right? If snoring is an easy one. The second easy test is irritability, someone who's easily angry, right? Those are pretty good signs. Pretty good signs.
Uh, oh, I can say that is definitely my sister, because I sleep in the same room as her, so she snores a little bit,
Sure,
and
sure,
she's a little bit irritable too at times, easily. So
sure,
maybe she
sure,
does have it.
sure. Yeah. Well, suggest she participates and maybe it'll give her some insights into her health.
Yeah, I'll definitely mention that to her.
Sure. So, are you glad you used the service?
I am glad I used the service. I liked how easy it was to understand, and there wasn't too much words and too little, just enough words with pictures and diagrams and data points. For me, seeing those data points are what impact me the most. If it's just words and pictures, maybe I'll just be like, oh, okay. But having those numbers with what you're trying to say or present, it makes it more impactful for me on my end.
And would you participate again?
I would. Maybe in a year. I want to see if it has improved.
That would be the goal. The absolute goal is for you to receive the report print out the report, take it to your doctor. And maybe the doctor gives you some advice or recommendations. Maybe they order, in your case, the sleep study that gets you a formal diagnosis. Perhaps you get the CPAP machine, or perhaps you get some other intervention that could help you sleep better. And then, of course, in a year's time, you check back with us to see how are you doing. And maybe your sleep is resolved. And because your sleep is resolved, your energy levels are up, you're able to exercise more, and all of those things we'll know and be able to share back with you. But maybe some other things will change that you weren't aware of. Maybe your mood will be lower for a different reason, and we'll be able to surface that kind of insight for you. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I want to see the impact for sure in a year.
Absolutely. And your advice for others, what advice would you have for others who might be hesitant to try the service, who are thinking about it but on the fence?
I would advise others that if you realize that on the day-to-day basis you are having low energy when you wake up from your sleep and you have headache, to maybe put that into a little bit more focus, prioritize that a little bit more, and first go to a doctor to see if that can be the case. And if it is, to get the machine and also utilize your service to see that you're not the only one. Because from your service that you provided to me, from what I've seen, it shows me that I'm not the only one that's experiencing. Sometimes in certain situations you feel like you're the only one, there's no one that you can discuss with, but that's not the case when I use your service. Like as of now, I'm able to talk to you about it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And that's exactly the goal. 192 million Americans, so quite a few Americans, have a symptomatic illness but are not seeing a doctor for their condition. And a lot of it is the things that we talked about today. We aren't aware, or if we are aware, it's not a priority. And that's okay because life gets busy. School, family. We're getting pulled in all sorts of different directions. And there's no one out there trying to pull for health, really. And that's kind of the goal for Healthful Data, is to share with people that if you fix your health, actually everything else with your life will actually improve dramatically. So that's the goal. And I don't know, have I converted you to a believer yet?
You have a good percentage.
Fair enough, fair enough. Do you hope others will try the service?
I do hope others will try the service.
Do you think there are particular individuals you believe would benefit the most, types of individuals, etc.?
I believe that individuals that work 9 to 5 job, have a family, have a lot on their plate in general, will utilize this service. It'll be beneficial for them because having a lot to do in a 24-hour span, 7 days a week, you are exhausted, and maybe giving this a try to see if sleep apnea is the case for that more than normal exhaustion that you would have from doing all that you do every day can be beneficial, make their life a little bit more fruitful than just living life.
That's wonderful, wonderful. So, Michelle, wanted to thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. I would love it if you would give me an update. Just send me a quick email. Hey, I saw a doctor. Hey, I got a machine, or I fixed it somehow. I would love to hear your story and how you change things for yourself for the better. Having experienced it myself, that change from 30% to 100%. Maybe you go from 70 to 100 or 60 to 90, whatever the case may be. It is my sincere hope that you achieve better health moving forward. So thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me, to share your experience with the platform, and I wish you a very pleasant day.
You too, have a good one.